Hello and welcome to my Bowens Flash head quick review. In this tutorial I'm going to go through the basic functions of the Bowens Gemini GM500R model. If I turn the light round to the back to begin with, I'm just going to go through some of the functions of the buttons. On the far right here we have the port where we put the electrical mains cable in. This links the light up to the main source of electricity. And this is what powers the light. Along here we've got the on-off button. When it's completely flat in the middle, the light is off. When I switch it upwards towards the squiggly line, which signifies the mains cable, we're switching the light on with the electricity main source. When we push the button downwards, we're activating the battery pack option. This is where you can take the light on location and use a battery pack to generate it. If you do want to take the light on location with the battery pack, this is the port where you'd put the battery pack into. Bearing in mind though, obviously you have to be aware that the battery pack doesn't operate the modelling bulb. This is useful to know if you want to shoot in very low light conditions, because if you can't use your modelling bulb on location in the dark, you're unable to see where your shadows are falling and how intense they are when the flash is eventually triggered. If we move the light round to the front, you can see that the light has two bulbs. The middle one is the modelling bulb. This is the light that is showing you where your shadows are going to fall and how intense they are before the flash is triggered. The bulb around the outside, which is circular, is the flash tube, and this is basically the actual flash that is going to be lighting your image. You cannot see the flash until it is actually triggered. This is why we need the modelling bulb. The modelling bulb runs at a slightly lower temperature, which is warmer. That's 3200 kelvins, whereas the flash tube, which is daylight balanced, runs at 5500 kelvins. You are able to have the modelling bulb on continuously throughout the exposure, or you have the option to have it switched off. Although you don't need to be too concerned over this, as the flash power is so strong it tends to overpower the warmer temperature of the modelling bulb anyway. If I turn the light right back to the back again, we'll just go through the buttons in slightly more detail. I'm going to switch the light on as if I was in the studio. So I will switch it upwards. Next along is the cell button. This basically is here for you to be able to trigger all your lights in a multiple lighting setup. When you set up your camera in the studio, you usually link it up to your main or key light via a flash sync cord. This enables the camera to read the external power that's going through the light and trigger the light when we press the shutter. But when you've got a multiple lighting setup, you're unable to trigger all the lights at the same time, as your flash sync lead can only go into one port. So with the cell button, we're able to enable all the lights to be seen via a radio signal. Here is the cell patch, which is where the radio signals are sent. When the cell button is pressed downwards and the light white box shows, you know that the cell button is on, and your light will be transmitting radio signals to the other lights. If they're able to be picked up and not be blocked by anything, then the light will be triggered to go off. In a studio setting, you will more likely be using more than one light. Next along we have the beep button. This button allows the photographer to know when the flash tube has fully recycled with power. This is quite important because the flash tube is relatively slow, but it has a lot of power to recharge. So when it's recycled, it's good to know that we can take another picture. This is because if it's not fully recycled and you try to take another picture, your image will automatically come out black because the flash tube has not been able to fire and light your image. Sometimes though, when you've got the beep down on all your lights, it can be slightly irritating. So if you want to switch it off, you can, and this won't have any technical effect on your image. You can tell that it's on when the light box shows, but I'll switch it off for now, as the next button is called Ready. And this also enables the photographer to be able to tell when the flash tube is fully recycled without having the annoying beeping sound. Ready is basically a button that allows the photographer to decide how they want their modelling bulb to be used in regards with the flash. So if I have it pressed downwards, when I take my picture, the bulb will go out and the flash will fire, and then the bulb will come back on again. Once this bulb has come back on again, I know that the flash tube has finished doing its job, recycled with power, and that it's time to take another picture. This is particularly useful, especially in a dark studio, because what should happen is if you've got Cell on and your Ready button on, your room should go dark for a split second. If your room does not go dark, you know that one of your lights has not been picked up the signal and is not going off. So it's particularly useful to know that when your room goes dark, everything has happened perfectly as you wanted it. If I don't switch the Ready button on, that means my bulb will be on constantly. We call this setting intermittent. Next along is the lamp button, and this gives you 3 categories of ways the photographer can use their modelling bulb in relation to the flash power. So lamp is basically how you want your modelling bulb to work alongside your flash, because your modelling bulb is on all the time while you're not taking pictures, and your flash tube is only triggered when you want to take your pictures. Down below we've got 3 LED lights, and these are the 3 categories. You have REL, which stands for relative. You have USR, which means user, and we have max, which means maximum. Relative basically means that your modelling bulb will automatically be relative to the flash power that you've set on the light. User is a user-defined function which enables the photographer to set some custom settings, program them in if they're going to be using the light several times in a row, which means they can come back tomorrow and use their saved settings for the same fashion shoot. Maximum means that you've decided to put your modelling bulb on maximum power regardless of what your flash power is. Down below we've got the sync in port, which is where we will put our flash sync lead when we want to link up our mains light, our main key light, to our camera. I'm going to turn the light round now so we can have a look at the flash power function dials in detail in relation to the lamp mode. On the side of the light here we have 2 dials. You can see one is called stops and one is called tenths. This one here enables the photographer to set full stops of light for the flash power. And on the other side it gives you tenths, which enables the photographer to set incremental tenths of a stop of power and add it to another full stop. So here we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5 being the maximum power. And then you have the options to have small increments, and this gives you really, really accurate control over your flash power. These 2 together actually gives you a total of 80 flash power options. Down the side here we have a list of what's listed on the back buttons. Basically this enables the photographer to be able to see what they have selected without physically going up to the light. This might sound a little bit silly, but sometimes the photographer is placed in between 2 lights and they don't necessarily have time to keep walking back behind the light to see what they've selected. An example of this is if the light is not going off, there's a good chance they may not have selected Cell, which means the photographer can just look on the side of the light and be able to see if they have selected Cell. If the photographer has selected Ready, Beep and Cell, all 3 will be illuminated. And down here, depending on how they've decided they want to use their lamp, one of these will be illuminated. In the middle here we've got the dumping button, and this allows the photographer to be able to tell if the flash power has reached the desired amount. Because if you switch between 3 and 4, you will find that the middle dumping button will blink until it is fully recharged to the next level of power. Once it has recharged to the next level of power, it will stop blinking. If you want to dump that power and move down to another different power, you'll need to press that to release the power going through the head. If you have problems with your light picking up signal, you are able to add in an omnicell or a photosensitive trigger into the back where the flash sync would be in the other lights. So your main light would have the flash sync lead in, but then your other lights could have an omnicell in, which helps pick up extra signal. This might be blocked by large accessories, for example, so sometimes they can't always pick up the power. If we move this back to the front, the other option on the stop dial is RAM, which stands for remote. This basically enables the photographer to remotely key in the power